The city of San Francisco shimmered under the golden haze of a late summer afternoon, its skyline a jagged silhouette against the Pacific. Julian Caldwell, CEO of Caldwell Technologies, sat in the back of his sleek black Mercedes, staring out at the bustling streets. At 38, he was a man who had everything: wealth, power, a penthouse overlooking the bay. Yet something was missing. His life, meticulously curated with board meetings and product launches, felt hollow. That was until he saw her. Her name was Lila Harper, a 32-year-old graphic designer who worked at a small creative agency downtown. Julian at first noticed her at a charity gala, where she stood out not for extravagance but for her quiet authenticity. Her auburn hair caught the light as she laughed with a colleague, her eyes bright with a warmth that made the room feel smaller, more intimate. She wasn't chasing the spotlight like the others, and that drew him in. He'd tried to approach her that night, but she'd slipped away before he could introduce himself. Now, weeks later, Julian was obsessed, not in a possessive way, but in the way a man might cling to a fleeting glimpse of something real. He'd learned through discreet inquiries that Lila took a rideshare to work every morning. She was practical, unpretentious, and fiercely independent, a stark contrast to the polished women who orbited his world, drawn to his status like moths to a flame. Julian knew he could walk into her agency, flash his name, and likely win her attention. But he didn't want that. He wanted her to see him, not his empire. So he hatched a plan, one that felt reckless, even foolish, for a man of his stature. He would become her driver. The next morning, Julian traded his tailored suit for a nondescript black polo and jeans. He borrowed a modest Toyota Camry from one of his employees, swapping out his Mercedes to complete the disguise. Signing up as a driver for a rideshare app was easy enough. His tech team handled the logistics, ensuring his profile was untraceable to his real identity. He called himself Evan Carter, a name close enough to his own to feel natural but distant enough to keep a secret. When Lila's ride request popped up on his app, his heart raced. He accepted it, gripping the steering wheel as he navigated to her pickup spot. She stood on the curb, her hair tied back in a loose bun, a canvas tote slung over her shoulder. She slid into the back seat, offering a polite smile through the rearview mirror. "Morning," she said, her voice soft but warm. "To Mission Street, please." "Got it," Julian replied, keeping his tone casual, though his pulse thundered. He stole glances at her in the mirror as she scrolled through her phone, her expression serene. He wanted to say something clever, something to make her laugh, but he settled for small talk. "Nice day, huh?" She looked up, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "Yeah, finally some sun. This fog's been relentless." That was it, their first conversation. It was mundane, but to Julian, it was electric. Over the next few weeks, he engineered a schedule to be her driver as often as possible. He learned her routines. Coffee at the same cafe every Monday, late nights at the agency on Thursdays, and a weekend trip to a bookstore in No Valley. Each ride was a chance to peel back another layer of her life. Lila was witty, with a dry sense of humor that caught Julian off guard. She talked about her work, designing vibrant posters for local bands, and her dreams of starting her own studio someday. She never asked much about him, but when she did, Julian spun a simple story. Evan Carter, a driver saving up for a better life, maybe a small business of his own. He hated lying, but the lie brought him closer to her. She relaxed around him, her guard lowering with each ride. One morning, as they idled in traffic, she leaned forward, resting her arms on the back of his seat. "You ever think about getting out of this city, Evan? Just starting over somewhere quieter?" He hesitated, caught off guard by the intimacy of the question. "Sometimes," he said, his voice softer than he intended. "But it's hard to leave a place when you got something keeping you here." She raised an eyebrow, a playful smirk tugging at her lips. "Oh, what's keeping you here, then?" He met her gaze in the mirror, his chest tightening. "Just something worth sticking around for." Her smirk softened into a smile, and for a moment, the air between them crackled with unspoken possibility. Julian felt it, the pull of something deeper, something that could upend his carefully controlled life. But not everyone was oblivious to Julian's charade. Lila's best friend, Nora, a sharp-witted barista at the cafe Lila frequented, noticed a new driver who seemed to appear whenever Lila needed a ride. Nora was 30, with a no-nonsense demeanor and a knack for reading people. She didn't trust Evan Carter. One afternoon, while Lila was in a meeting, Nora flagged down Julian's car outside the cafe. She slid into the back seat, her arms crossed. "You're Lila's regular driver, right?" she asked, her tone more accusation than question. Julian nodded, keeping his expression neutral. "Yeah, I guess so." Nora's eyes narrowed. "You're not just a driver, are you? I've seen you linger after she gets out. You're too attentive." Julian's grip on the wheel tightened. "I'm just doing my job." "Bull," Nora said, leaning forward. "You like her. And I don't know what your deal is, but if you're playing some kind of game, you need to back off." Julian's stomach churned. He hadn't anticipated anyone seeing through him so quickly. "I'm not playing games," he said quietly, meeting her gaze in the mirror. "I care about her." Nora studied him for a long moment, then softened slightly. "If that's true, then be real with her. She deserves that." The encounter left Julian rattled. Nora's protectiveness was a reminder of the stakes. He was lying to Lila, building a connection on a foundation of deceit. But he couldn't stop. Each smile from Lila, each shared laugh, felt like a lifeline. As weeks turned into months, Julian's feelings deepened. He found himself daydreaming about a life with Lila, one where he wasn't CEO, but just a man who loved her. He started leaving small gestures, a playlist of her favorite bands on car stereo, a book he'd found that matched her taste. She noticed, her eyes lighting up with each discovery, but she never suspected he was anything more than a thoughtful driver. One evening, after a particularly long day at her agency, Lila lingered in the car after he parked outside her apartment. The street was quiet, the city's hum muted by the late hour. She sighed, leaning her head back against the seat. "You ever feel like you're chasing something you can't quite reach?" she asked, her voice heavy with exhaustion. Julian turned slightly, his heart aching at the vulnerability in her tone. "All the time," he admitted. "But sometimes you find something or someone that makes the chase worth it." She looked at him, her eyes searching his face. For a moment, he thought she might lean closer, might bridge the gap between them. But she just smiled a little sadly. "You're a good guy, Evan. I hope you find what you're chasing." The words hit him like a punch. She saw him as a friend, a confidant, but nothing more. He wanted to tell her everything, his real name, his feelings, the truth, but fear held him back. What if she saw his wealth and assumed he was just another entitled rich man? What if she rejected him for the lie? The turning point came at a local art festival where Lila's agency had a booth. Julian, still as Evan, offered to drive her and Nora to the event. The festival was alive with color and sound. Street musicians, vibrant murals, and the scent of food trucks. Lila was in her element, her laughter infectious as she showed off her designs. Nora, however, kept a close eye on Julian. During a lull, she pulled him aside. "You're in deep, aren't you?" she said, her voice softer than before. "I can see in the way you look at her. But you're holding something back, and it's going to break her trust if you don't come clean." Julian swallowed hard. "I want to tell her. I just don't know how." Nora's expression softened, but her words were firm. "Figure it out. She's worth it." That night, Julian made a decision. He would tell Lila the truth. He drove her home, his heart pounding as he rehearsed the words in his head. When they reached her apartment, he turned off the engine and faced her. "Lila, there's something I need to tell you," he began, his voice unsteady. "I'm not just a driver. My name is Julian Caldwell. I own a tech company. I've been driving you because I wanted to know you, the real you, without all the baggage that comes with who I am." Lila's face froze, her eyes wide with shock. For a moment, She said nothing, and Julian's hope flickered. Then her expression hardened. "You lied to me," she said, her voice low but sharp. "All this time, you've been pretending to be someone you're not. Do you know how that feels?" "I didn't mean to hurt you," Julian said, desperation creeping into his voice. "I just wanted you to see me, not my money or my name." "But you didn't trust me to do that." Lila shot back, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "You thought I'd care about your wealth or your status or whatever else you're hiding. I thought I knew you, Evan or Julian or whoever you are, but I guess I didn't know you at all." She opened the car door, her movements sharp with anger. "I need to think. Please, just go." Julian watched her walk away, his chest tight with regret. He'd gambled everything on a lie, and he'd lost. The next morning, Julian canceled his rideshare account and returned to his CEO life. But the emptiness lingered. He couldn't focus on work, couldn't shake the image of Lila's hurt expression. He wanted to reach out to explain, but he respected her request for space. Meanwhile, Nora couldn't stay silent. She'd seen the pain in Lila's eyes after the revelation, and she wasn't about to let Julian or Evan off the hook. She tracked him down at a coffee shop near his office, recognizing him despite his polished suit. "You're a hard man to find," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Lila told me what happened. You broke her heart, you know." Julian's jaw tightened. "I didn't mean to. I wanted her to like me for me." Nora leaned forward, her gaze piercing. "Then why didn't you just tell her the truth from the start? You're not the only one who's scared of getting hurt, Julian. Lila's been burned before. Guys who wanted her for her looks, her talent, her spark. She thought you were different." "I was," Julian said, his voice breaking. "I am." Nora studied him, then sighed. "She's not ready to hear that yet. But I'll tell you something. She didn't reject you because you're a driver. She rejected you because you lied. If you want her back, you gotta earn her trust." Over the next few weeks, Julian gave Lila space but didn't give up. He sent her a letter, not an email, but a handwritten note delivered to her agency. In it, he poured out his heart, apologizing for the lie and explaining why he'd done it. He didn't ask for forgiveness. He only asked for a chance to start over. "Dear Lila, I know I've hurt you, and for that, I'll never forgive myself. My name is Julian Caldwell, but the man you knew as Evan was real, the man who laughed with you, who listened to you, who fell for you. I hid my identity because I was afraid you'd see only my wealth, not my heart. That was my mistake, not yours. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to trust me again. But I want you to know that every moment we spent together was true for me. You made me feel alive in a way I haven't in years. If you ever want to talk, not as driver and passenger, but as two people trying to find something real, I'll be here." Lila didn't respond, but Nora kept Julian updated. "She's softening." Nora told him one day over coffee. "She read your letter. She cried, but she hasn't thrown it away. That's something." Nora's encouragement kept Julian going. She became an unexpected ally, revealing her own feelings in quiet moments. "You're not the only one who sees something special in her," she admitted once, her cheeks flushing. "But I know she's into you. Or was. Just be patient." Julian was patient. He showed up at Lila's favorite bookstore one Saturday, not as a driver but as himself, dressed simply but elegantly. She was there, browsing a stack of novels. When she saw him, her eyes widened, but she didn't walk away. "Julian," she said, her voice cautious but not cold. "Lila," he replied, his heart in his throat. "I'm not here to push. I miss you." She studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then, softly, she said, "I miss Evan, but I don't know if I can trust Julian." Julian nodded, accepting the weight of her words. "I'll wait," he said, "as long as it takes." The festival had been a turning point. Lila's rejection stung, but it also clarified what Julian had to do. He'd been chasing a fantasy, a version of himself that didn't exist. To win her back, he'd have to be honest, vulnerable, and persistent. With Nora's quiet support and his own determination, Julian began to rebuild the trust he'd broken, one truthful moment at a time.